Hey guys, Cameron for The Americans, Season 4, Episode 6, The Rat, and holy shit, another incredible episode. I mean, this episode, once again, the season just keeps on delivering. What I love the most about this season is that even though we just had this very shocking death in Nina, and people are still recovering from that, the show is still going on, and especially after this episode, I definitely think we're in for another death, because what happens at the end, we'll get into that, because it's a very interesting situation, but this is the kind of episode I love of The Americans, because it mainly just focused on, while there were other things going on, it mainly did focus on Phillip and Martha's relationship, the way it's changed, how dangerous it's become, the situation that they're in, and I really love that. I think this was by far one of Martha's best episodes. I think this episode was right up there with episode 4, probably right below. Episode 4 is still the best episode of this season, but I think episode 6 was, like, right below it. I absolutely loved everything about this episode. Very interesting stuff overall, and especially the ending. I really do want to get into that because that's going to be crazy, but let's just get into this episode. So we start off right after Phillip and Elizabeth had sex in the last episode. Elizabeth can tell that Phillip's mind is in other places, though. He's really not focusing on that at all. We could tell from the second they had sex that he was being very distant. Like, he was having sex, but he's really not focused on that at all. And it really just showed the way that their relationship is sort of changing. While I think Phillip and Elizabeth, they are depending on each other to get each other through this, they both are focused on much other things. Elizabeth's focused more on her family. Well, it seems like Phillip's a lot more focused on other things that's going on. And Elizabeth can tell that Phillip's mind is in another place. She reassures him that Martha's okay and to not worry about her, but you can tell that he really is worried. Even though, and this is the thing about Martha, if you guys remember, Martha was initially just someone he went to in a time of need, when he was told to, work with her. He went to her when him and Elizabeth are going through a hard time, and now he really starting to care for her, and I think he started to care for her all this time, but I think this is probably the most he's ever cared for her. And Phillip feels a little stupid for being so paranoid, but he feels responsible for Martha because he dragged her into this. He's the one that admitted to killing Jean. He's the one that basically told Martha what he really looks like, showed her, who he really is, things like that. And because of this, he really feels that he is the direct reason for all of this stuff happening to her, and he's really worried about it, and he's never really felt this responsibility before. And right away we get a scene that very much concerned me, because we see Martha, she's taking pills, and I'm like, she's gonna overdose. I was freaking out. I honestly thought Martha was gonna kill herself in this episode. I mean, I thought that all season. I thought that since last season, but I legitimately was thinking Martha's gonna kill herself here. Luckily, she packs a bag, and she takes a look around her apartment as if she may not be back, and then heads out the door. Like, it looks like she's not coming back. She's planning on leaving this apartment, and I don't think she thinks she's ever gonna come back from it, and it's a really hard scene to watch, because once again, I was thinking this was Martha gonna commit suicide. That's how I thought this episode was gonna end, just the way that things were going. I really didn't see Martha getting out of this episode. I mean, and I know they obviously wouldn't do that because Nina, and The Americans not the kind of show that just kills off characters, willy-nilly like that. That's not something that The Americans usually do. Like I said, Nina was was the first one to go in a while, so I don't think The Americans just randomly just gonna start massacring all these characters. This isn't Game of Thrones or something, but, characters need to die eventually, and characters do, when their time is up, and Martha's a character that I think the clock is ticking for her, honestly. The clock is ticking for her, and her death is definitely coming, especially after this episode. I definitely think that's happening. So we get this really great scene, though, at work. We see Eberhold and Stan. They're still obsessing over Martha. They're kind of talking about what Martha's doing and how they really feel about her. Stan even says that he thinks Martha's kind of attractive, but she's very shady. And they have pulled out all of her files at this point, and Eberhold learns that Martha had an abortion back in the 1960s when it was still very illegal and dangerous. If you guys remember back in the 1960s, that wasn't really common back then to have abortions. Hell, it wasn't even that common in the 80s. I mean, it happened. It wasn't illegal, but back then it was considered illegal. Like, it wasn't something that you could legally do. You guys want an example of that? Watch The Nick, a fantastic, that's a fantastic version on what the situation was with abortions. I mean, there's a whole subplot with that with abortions. Great show. I gotta catch up on that at some point. But Stan really doesn't believe that she was married, that she had this abortion. He doesn't believe any of this. He really feels that there's something more she's hiding. And we don't know if this is actually true. I don't think we've heard about this before, that Martha had this abortion. So I'm really wondering, is she telling the truth, or is she just trying to get them off her back? Because I really can't tell. I mean, I think she's just making herself look more shady, personally. I think that's really what she's doing. But, very interesting way. I really like the way this was done. Like I said, I like that every scene really did have something to do with Martha. So Phillip meets up with William at a park, and he tells William that they need another sample of the biological warfare, and obviously, you know, William's very hesitant to get that, because obviously the last time what happened with glanders, and he can be, and he even tells him, you know, there's no way that he can get his hands on this, but he can see some Tola though he says it is easily weaponized nasty stuff, and Phillip says that Tola will do. They're going to use it, even though they don't initially want to, they kind of have to use it. That's just the situation that they're in, they got to use it. So Phillip vents to William about his Martha problem. He has a feeling that she is in danger. He doesn't really know in what way, but he just feels that there's this constant danger headed towards her, but the center won't let him take her out, unfortunately. He wants her out of this, you know, he doesn't want to use her anymore. He really feels this isn't right. I mean, remember, the center was the one, the center gives him all these missions, and what I've loved about the season in general, and in the show in general, I think for a while he's been able to balance his life with Martha. Him telling Martha he killed Jean was probably the worst thing he could have ever done. I mean, I think deep down he wanted to just tell her the truth so he could get it off his back and not have to hide things from her anymore. But it really has caused a lot more problems, and at this point, he just wants to take her out of the center. The problem is, it's too late, and like I've said, this really is the season of consequences, and I think they're really showing that very well. Just every episode, there's more and more consequences, and no one really is facing more of that than Phillip. I think Elizabeth kind of is, but definitely Phillip more than anyone else. I mean, Phillip is going through all this shit, and I'm honestly really concerned, I have to say. So basically, William scoffs at their bosses at the center have no idea what they are doing, and yeah, that really is true. I mean, they don't really know everything that's going on. That definitely changes after this episode, though. We'll get into that, but I love that little bit of dialogue is actually so imperative for the way this episode ends, because of what ends up happening. So Martha heads to work. She catches Stan watching her from over across the room all day. She clocks out, heads home, and it's a really crazy, it's a kind of a scary scene, because you can tell that Stan is kind of stalking her, and she doesn't really know what's going on. So while she's walking down the street, Phillip/Clark pulls up, tells her to get in the car, and is basically, you know, just yelling at her, get in the car now. And Phillip tells Martha that he thinks they know about her at work, and he's taking her somewhere safe. He takes her to an abandoned safe house, which is where most of the episode takes place, is at this safe house. Even though there's other stuff that happens, most of it does take place in this safe house. Not a lot happens for Elizabeth, by the way. Elizabeth kind of is just there for some things, which we'll get into. But, basically, they go to this safe house because Phillip just feels she's not safe anywhere else. You know, she can't just be in this, you know, she can't be in her apartment. She's not safe there. She's got the CIA after her. I mean, she can't be there anymore. She needs to be in the safe house, and Gabriel arrives at the safe house. Basically, he's not happy with Phillip, and you can tell that Gabriel, you know, he's trying to keep his cover, but he really is not happy with Phillip about this at all, and Phillip argues that he has been dealing with her for 3 years. He can't hang her out to dry. He doesn't want her to have to do with this anymore, and Gabriel takes Phillip aside. He tells him that he screwed up. He needs to take Martha back home and send her to work in the morning like nothing has happened. And I mean, I get Gabriel's points. This is what he was told to do. You know, he agreed to, you know, bring Martha in the center. He agreed to this. He needs to, you know, commit to it. He can't just suddenly back out of it. I mean, you know, that's just how Gabriel is. You know, when Gabriel gives you a mission, you just don't back out of it. That's just how it is. And I like you know, we've always seen this conflict between Gabriel and Phillip. We've seen it since last season with the whole Paige situation. But I really feel this is going to be one of the first things that really gets these two completely against each other. Because I feel like Gabriel, they've had little tiffs here and there, but nothing that's really completely fundamentally changed anything. I mean, yes, there was that fear that Gabriel's going to retire. He said that to them in the first episode. After this episode, that could end up happening. I could really see that happening after what ends up happening. So Phillip tells Gabriel he just can't let the FBI arrest her because she knows what he really looks like. And that really is a problem, obviously, because the FBI could find out who he is, and then Stan knows who he is. I mean, this could really end up badly for him. And Phillip shouts at Gabriel that Martha is done, and then he storms off, and I love that he says, you know, Martha's done. I don't want to do this anymore. Martha's out of here. I don't want to deal with you. Just leave. And the fact that he's actually going against Gabriel, I mean, yeah, it's really, you know, really bad for his cover, what he's doing, and really a detriment to what he's doing, but he doesn't care. He will protect Martha over anyone else. You know, he will protect Martha over the center, and he doesn't really care anymore. We've known for years that Phil wants to get out of the KGB. He just hasn't been able to because you're kind of there for life, and he can't really get out of it. But if you remember, since season 2, he's been saying, I want to get out of the KGB, and I don't know if this is going to happen this season, but I kind of feel like it's going to happen. I don't know how. I just feel like it's going to happen. So, at the safe house, Gabriel prepares dinner for him and Martha. Elizabeth then arrives in her disguise. She has brought some clothes and supplies for Martha, and Martha's shocked when she recognizes her, and Elizabeth tries to comfort Martha, tells her that she's there for her and will make sure nothing happens to her. She heads to the kitchen, leaves Martha sitting in the dark and watching TV, and I like that Elizabeth was there when she needed to be, but Elizabeth is shocked when she realizes that Phillip isn't wearing a disguise, which of course, she did not know that Phillip showed Martha who he really is. This is something that Elizabeth didn't know. We do get one little scene with Paige, which we will get into, but he tells her that she was suspicious and having a meltdown. He didn't have a choice, and he just had to reveal himself to her because he just felt it was the best thing to do. He didn't want to keep it this lie anymore. He wants her to know what's going on, and at this point, I mean, he probably could just tell her he's KGB. I mean, it would break her more, but she's already so crazy and just so, off the rails that I don't really know, if it would do anything that different, and basically Elizabeth is obviously very put off by this because this means that Martha wasn't sleeping with Clark anymore. She was sleeping with Phillip. And this really kind of, even though this has been their job, that they've, had sex with people to get information out of them, this really starts to affect her in this way that I don't really think Elizabeth felt before, because before, they've been keeping these disguises, these facades that aren't really them and are just a personality that they were told to come up with to basically get information. Now, it's no longer about that. This is a lot more personal, Martha. She never thought it would go this far. But again, if you remember, when, Phillip initially met Martha, him and Elizabeth were calling it quits, it seemed like in season 1, if you guys remember that whole thing they went through. But, she really is upset about this, and I do like that Elizabeth genuinely cares about this. I mean, it's something that I don't really think the show's delved into, but again, like I've said, problems that haven't been as big as a problem in past seasons are more of a problem this season. You definitely start to see that I do think this is going to become a problem as the season goes on, is Elizabeth probably not wanting them to be KGB anymore. I could totally see her just being like, I want to opt out, I don't want to do, and not just not be KGB, but not have to keep up these, disguises and get information. I think she wants that to be over, you can definitely tell. So, he refuses to leave her, tells Elizabeth it is better if she just goes home. He just does not want her there. If she's going to complain, if she's going to do this, he can't have her there. There's already so much drama going on. It's too much for him to handle. He can't do it. So Elizabeth goes home, tries out a Korean recipe with Paige. Her kids are not impressed with the tofu chicken, but Paige sets the table anyway. And Henry is still very caught up in Epcot. He wants him to go to Epcot. He doesn't want this to be the end. And his mom reassures him that they will get there eventually. And I don't really know if that's going to happen. I feel like that's the goal, that they do want to get to Epcot, and they do want to get the hell out of there, but I feel like Elizabeth is just kind of thinking this as a goal, like something that she wants to happen that isn't going to happen. To me, it seems like that is her safe, that's the thing that keeps her safe. That's the thing that keeps her sane, and the thing that keeps her from just completely losing it. I think she knows deep down there is no hope for them, that, they're going to end up having to leave, and they could get captured. I mean, so many things could happen, especially now she knows that Phillip is no longer keeping up his facade as Clark. She obviously is very concerned, and I like seeing that. I think they really showed that here. It really does add this whole layer to Elizabeth's character we haven't seen before. I've said it before, Phillip is much more affected in missions than Elizabeth is, but I think this is the episode that indicates that Elizabeth is getting just as affected and just as attached as Phillip is, and I really do love that. So after Elizabeth leaves, Martha confronts him. She can tell that Jennifer is not really, because, Elizabeth is pretending to be Jennifer, she's not really Phillip's sister. She knows what's going on. She wants to know if they're sleeping together, and I legitimately thought he was going to tell her all. I really thought he was just going to say everything, that I'm KGB, and, my name's really Phillip, and that's my, that's my wife and everything. I thought he was going to tell her just everything. Now, she knows he's KGB, obviously. She knows about that. She does not, however, know everything that's going on, she does not know who he really is. She doesn't know that he's really married. She doesn't know that he has 2 kids, and she doesn't know that this was all just part of a scheme. She doesn't know about any of that. But he does confess to Martha that he and Jennifer work for the KGB. So he does kind of tell her some things, but she doesn't so he does in fact tell her that they're part of KGB, and I'm glad that he told her. This is something that I never thought Phillip would actually reveal to her, but he legitimately tells her, I work for the KGB, and this is something that really breaks Martha. I mean, Martha just doesn't know how to react to this, and, I thought that she was just gonna just, leave, and again, I was so worried that Martha was gonna commit suicide. This entire episode, I'm thinking Martha's just gonna kill herself. So Phillip comforts her while she sobs, promises that he won't ask her to do anything for him ever again, because he just can't do that anymore. This whole lie, it's too much. And Martha finally pulls herself together, says she doesn't care about the KGB or the FBI chasing her. She still is Phillip, and that's all that matters. She doesn't really care who he is. She doesn't really care that Phillip, is part of the KGB. she just cares that he's there for her, that this man cares for her. And I think Phillip deep down does care for her. That's the thing. He does love Elizabeth. That is obviously his wife. That's who he wants to be with. But I do think he has this deep connection to Martha. This is no longer just getting information out of someone. This is a deep connection. This is someone who he truly does care about, and it really is going to cause a problem for Elizabeth, you can definitely tell. So Martha kisses Phillip, tells him that she wants to run away with him, and then seduces him, and while she cries, Gabriel lays downstairs in the living room, listening to them having sex, and in that scene where he's listening to them, I mean, you can see the look on his face. He is pissed that this is still going on. He doesn't really know how to deal with all this, and you know, he doesn't want them to be this close, obviously, because to him, this is just a mission. This is just someone that Phillip was supposed to recruit, and Phillip is taking this a lot farther than he initially should be. And yes, obviously, this could end up having a lot of ramifications for Phillip in the future, whether they're positive or negative, but at the moment, I think Gabriel's most focused on what's really going to happen, you know, with Phillip in this situation, definitely. So at work the next day, Stan and Eberhold learn that Martha called in sick, and they're very suspicious. They call her house, but there's no answer. They don't know where she is. Obviously, they want to get information. They're very suspicious. They don't really know what's going on. And meanwhile, at the safe house, Phillip and Martha are planning their next move. She's optimistic that maybe the guy watching her was wrong and the FBI isn't tailing her, but Phillip lets her down easy, but tells her that that's definitely not the case, that the FBI was on her, they're definitely coming after her. She doesn't really know why, but, you know, basically the FBI is coming after her, and Martha gets very emotional, and I like that Martha had this doubt, like she was just thinking, and to me it's kind of like Elizabeth with Epcot, that she's basically just saying this to keep herself from basically committing suicide, because to me, Martha's suicidal. I think she doesn't want to admit it, but I've always thought Martha was suicidal. I mean, ever since the whole thing with Phillip, ever since, especially, you know, now knowing that Jean, you know, was killed by Phillip, and knowing that Phillip works for the KGB, it's a lot, really. I mean, imagine the person that you've been living with for 3 years, got married to, fell in love with, is actually a Russian spy. How would you react to that? I really love the way the episode did that. It's something that could have gone very wrong, but I think the episode portrayed it in the most realistic way possible, and I love the episode mainly was Martha's reaction. You see Phillip's as well, but Martha's is really the one that breaks us, because we see that this is no longer just someone that is keeping this as a lie and is enjoying this lie. You know, now she knows what's going on. It's really affected her, and she really feels different towards Phillip, definitely. I mean, she doesn't feel any different necessarily, but obviously she does think a lot more of what's going on. So Martha gets very emotional and she realizes she's never going home, and it's really sad. I mean, she's never going to get back home. She's never going to be able to get back to her job. I mean, there's a lot of terrible shit going on with Martha, and I really don't know if she's going to come out of this, definitely. So Gabriel interrupts, tells Phillip that he needs him, and basically, he tells him, now this I thought was very interesting, because I was wondering if, Gabriel actually, you know, this was legit, and he's trying to get Phil to focus on the mission, or if he's just, you know, if he actually does have to go back, or if he's just getting Phil to focus on the mission, because he tells him he just got this emergency phone call from William, and he has the biological warfare, and Philip doesn't want to go, but he reluctantly agrees and heads out, and before he goes, he checks in on Martha. She's asleep. He goes through her purse and finds her pills and a gun, and obviously, he's freaking out. I mean, I think he's thinking in his mind, she's gonna kill herself. These pills that she has, this gun, we know she keeps that gun. That gun is not for self-defense. That gun is for killing herself. I know it's for that. I know it is because Martha's suicidal. I know that those pills, there's a reason why she has those pills. She doesn't just have those pills for a reason. She has those pills because she wants to overdose. She has those pills because she wants to shoot herself. I think at this point, she's just waiting for the right time, and I really do think that's what's happening here. It's a very realistic reaction. I mean, again, just Martha can't deal with it. She can't. You can tell she can't deal with it. Her soul's kind of dead, honestly, at this point. Not necessarily dead, but just everything that Martha's going through. I mean, you have to feel, honestly, out of all the characters, I feel the worst for Martha. I really do. I also love that there was no Oleg or Arcady in this entire episode, mainly because of the fact that we focused so much on them in the past 2 episodes, and we haven't so much with Nina. We need to focus more on Martha. That was our main focus this episode, and I really did love that everything had to really structured around Martha. But the thing with Gabriel telling, you know, Phillip, oh, we gotta go back to, you know, we have to go back to, you know, William because he has a warfare, to me, I thought that was him being like, dude, focus on the mission. That's really what's important here, you know, even though you're getting attached, you need to focus on the mission. You have a mission here, you need to accomplish it, and if you don't accomplish it, I'm going to leave, because we know that, you know, Gabriel's to the point where he's going to leave, and especially the end of this episode, we'll definitely get into that, but Everhold and Stan then head to Martha's house. The landlord lets them in, and they snoop around. Obviously, she's not there, but they're really worried. You know, they don't really know what's going on. They know there's obviously something going on. There's something that she's hiding. They just don't know what it is. So Everhold says they're going to call forensics to check it out. Something is definitely off. There are no photos. There's nothing personal, and it's if is no one really lived there, and they know that obviously she did live there. They run a check on Clark Westfield, and it turned out an 85-year-old in Florida and a 35-year-old in Atlanta. And Stan tells someone to run a check and see if there are any recent death certificates for Clark Westerfelds, and yeah, very interesting the way this is done. I really am worried for Stan, I have to say. I mean, I'm really worried with this whole Stan situation. I really think Stan's close to solving that. The guy that basically he thought had sex with his wife is in fact KGB. I think he's going to find that out very soon. And again, his experience with Nina, he should know this stuff, but I feel like he just doesn't want to think that. I feel like at some point he's got to start thinking that maybe something's going on there. I definitely think he's starting to get an inkling that there's just something not right. So Stan heads to Agent Gad's office. He and Gabriel fill him in on the Martha situation. They tell Gad about all the search for Clark Westerfield, and Gad is taken aback. He had no idea that Clark Westerfield died, and Martha's worked at the FBI for over 10 years. He's nearly speechless. All he can say is that's crazy. He really doesn't have much of a reaction. He doesn't really know what to do with this. I mean, again, this guy that supposedly Martha's been with is dead, and they don't really know what's going on. They know that the man posing as her husband is not really her husband, and they know that Martha definitely is hiding something. They just don't know what it is, and this is something that they never really suspected. They always said that Martha was loyal for them, but now knowing that she's against them, I mean, they don't really know how to react to this, and I really love that. I mean, really, they're as lost as the audience is, and again, you can't really predict what's going to happen in the show anymore, so Phillip meets up with William. He gives him a test tube, tells him that he had to improvise. He had to bring a sample from a dead rat that had contracted Tulmeria, and before Phillip leaves, William wants to know what happened with Martha, because obviously he's very concerned, and Phillip says that he disobeyed the center, and he's bringing her in, and William congratulates him. He's impressed that Phillip stood up to them, and I like that William's actually happy with this. He's not upset. He actually thinks it's the right thing to do for Phillip to take a stand. Phillip's wanted to take a stand, but he's kind of been very low-key about it, but finally he's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to take a stand. I'm not just going to let you harass her. I'm going to take a stand here. So meanwhile, Elizabeth's undercover, watching from around the corner. Apparently she wanted to make sure that Phillip is still doing his job. I think she's thinking that Phillip is not doing his job, and he's basically screwing around. I think that's really what she's thinking, that he's getting attached to Martha, and he's getting disattached from her, and in many ways, it seems like that's what's happening. He's more concerned about Martha, and less concerned about Elizabeth. I mean, when was the last time he showed any genuine compassion, really? When was the last time he showed any concern, really, for Elizabeth? I haven't really seen it in a while. I mean, sure, there hasn't really been anything to be necessarily worried about, but it seems like all of his worries are anything but Elizabeth, and you can definitely tell these two are getting more and more distant, and it started last season, it's continuing into this season. I think it's something that they are going to work out at some point, but, you know, those two fundamentally need to be together. The show needs to go on. The show can't go on unless those two are together. That's just how it is. But I do think that there could be a broken marriage coming in very soon, whether it's they work together or they end up, you know, staying together, but they're not actually married. I do think that's what's going to end up happening. Something is definitely going to happen here. I like Elizabeth starting to get suspicious, and it really does add this new layer to her character that we haven't really seen before. So Martha wakes up, finds Gabriel in the kitchen. He offers to make her breakfast, but Martha isn't interested. She wants to know where Phillip is because he's not there, and when Gabriel was there, I was like, shit, this is not going to end well, because Gabriel's there. We know that he doesn't really want this to go on with Martha. We know that he really doesn't want her there. I was really worried that something was going to happen. I was worried that he was going to, like, kill her or try to, like, kidnap. I had no idea what he was really going to do. So Gad is still dumbfounded about Martha. He feels guilty that he didn't pick up on it sooner because he should have been able to, and Gad thinks that the reason Jean died, maybe he figured out what she was up to, that this is really why Jean died, that maybe something would have happened there, and she's thinking that maybe Martha killed, Jean because of something that she was doing. So I like they don't necessarily suspect that Clark is involved. They think that Clark's dead, obviously. They think that Martha, they're thinking she's going to think that she's a serial killer or something. I mean, a lot of the evidence does add up that way. You know, husband dead, Jean dead, she's not coming to work, she's hiding things from them. It really does point to she's like a serial killer or something. I really think that's what they're going to start to think, which is very interesting, and maybe a different direction than something we've seen. I mean, yeah, it'd be kind of a silly thing, but I do think it would work for this show, definitely, the way they could do that. So at the safe house, Martha's getting ready to leave. Apparently, she's not waiting around for Clark. She grabs her purse, and she seems upset that her gun is missing because it's not there, and you know that Phillip took it. You knew that Phillip took it because he doesn't want her to obviously off herself. She stomps downstairs out of the door of the house. Gabriel calls after. He tries to convince her to come back inside, and this is when it all comes out. Martha, you can tell at this point, she just doesn't know what to do. She's furious. She raises her voice, demands to know where Clark is, and Martha growls at Gabriel to get away from her or she will scream. and she just doesn't want to hide anymore. She doesn't want to hide anymore. She doesn't want to go through this anymore, and she literally says that she will scream, tell everyone he's KGB. Gabriel is shocked. He knows that Phillip blew their cover. He doesn't know what to do, and that is how the episode ends, and oh my god, I mean, Martha's a goner. That's simple. Martha is a goner. I do not see how Martha's going to recover from this. There are two choices right now. Gabriel's going to leave Phillip and Elizabeth, or he's just going to kill Martha. That's going to happen. One of those two things are going to happen before the season ends, or Martha's going to kill herself. Either way, Martha's a goner. I do not see her getting through the rest of the season. I do not see her getting out of the season. She's a goner. There is no way that she's getting out of this. If she is, she's like Supergirl or something. I don't know how she's going to get out of this, really. I don't get it. I don't know how Martha's really going to get out of this situation. It's just such a tumultuous situation. What's going on? I don't really know if she's going to be able to get out of this one, really. It's so complicated, and there's so much going through her head, and especially the gun and the pills. I mean, between everything, she's either going to kill herself or someone's going to kill her. That's really what it's coming down to. And now, Gabriel, I think, is really not going to trust Phillip. Now that he knows that Phillip blew their cover and literally told Martha everything, which is the exact opposite of what Gabriel told him not to do, what's going to happen here? I mean, I don't think Martha meant to get Phillip in trouble. I don't think he meant to do that. I don't think Martha knew that she couldn't tell them, tell Gabriel what was going on. I don't really think Martha cared, though. I think Martha, in that sense, she just needed to get it out. She needed to get out what she was upset about. She needed to show her genuine concern for Clark because she does care about him. Even though she knows that he is KGB, she knows that he is a Russian spy, she doesn't care. She fell in love with this man. She cares about this man. He cares about her. He wanted to get her away from there. She basically, still cares about him no matter what. She's not going to just let Gabriel get her away from him. She's not going to let that happen. And the way that scene was executed, I absolutely love. I thought it was very well done. But how is Gabriel going to react to this? I don't really know what's going to happen there. I mean, you can tell Gabriel and Elizabeth kind of want the same thing for Phillip, where they both want Phillip to focus on one thing, and that is the mission. That's what they really need to focus on. The problem is, Phillip is getting way too attached. He's too attached to Martha now. He's too attached. He's even getting attached to William. I mean, these missions are not just missions for him anymore. They're more of a personal thing at this point, and he feels it is his duty to help these people and, do something about it, because he really just doesn't want to be this man of facade telling lies. He doesn't want to do that anymore. It's affected him. It's just not something he wants to do, and he can't do it anymore. And it really sucks that that has to happen, but he just can't do it. And I can totally understand why he doesn't want to do that anymore. Again, imagine being in Phillip's situation. He just can't do it, unfortunately, and it really sucks, but he can't do that anymore, which really does suck, definitely. But I thought that was very interesting. The whole episode I thought was very interesting. And then Elizabeth, you can definitely tell Elizabeth is starting to get a bit, not a bit jealous. That's not the word. Is very jealous. She definitely knows that something's going on between Phillip and Martha. I think she's worried that Phillip is getting more attached to Martha than her. In many ways, he is. He doesn't really seem as concerned about Elizabeth as he usually is. I think definitely there's something going on there. We'll have to see what happens there. I don't really know what exactly is going to happen, but definitely something is going to happen. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. And then as far as Gad, I really do think that they're thinking that Martha's like a serial killer or something. To me, it doesn't point to her being KGB. To me, it points as being like a serial killer. And I think that's really what they think is going to happen. They know that there's something she's hiding. They just don't really know what it is. Clark Westerfield dead. I mean, how'd she come up with this information? And then that story about her abortion, is that true? I mean, I don't really think we've heard that story before. So is that true? Is that just something that Martha came up to cover her ass? I'm not really sure. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Absolutely love this episode. One of my favorite episodes of this season. One of my favorite episodes, I think, in general. I loved everything about this episode. Really incredible stuff. Between Elizabeth's concern and what Martha's doing. I mean, she really is getting herself into a very dangerous situation. But guys, this season just keeps on delivering. By far my favorite season, without a doubt. I mean, there's nothing in my mind that says this isn't my favorite season. This episode just is one of the reasons why this is my favorite season. The consequences, everything's getting worse, things are getting more complicated. But overall, guys, so much guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for another classic movie review for you guys, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.